Since so many people seem to have enjoyed on nights that we were not necessarily taping for the public of having me comment on the dangers, the pitfalls of doing such as this, or in your attempt to pursue this, I thought that I would go ahead and tell you the real, just cover it more, just blanket it, of the obstacles and the problems, the difficulties, the traps, the snares in doing such as this, right? The particular ones, and I'll tell you what they are. They're the same as life, getting old and fat and lazy. Now, on to something else. I'm sure that would have sounded better had I made it more mystical in its terminology. But then again, how about this? If you say something worthwhile and it has to be couched in just the proper terminology, that means that your listeners are what? Old and fat and lazy. So what good would it do anyway? None. Last time I mentioned somewhere in one of the items that in regards to trying to be more human, trying to be more alive, more intellectually conscious, that there had to be a kind of passion to your thinking. That was actually the time before last, probably. And then last time, there was an item that said, in that same regard, referring to the same area, that there is no passion in plagiarism. That was intended, if it had any, to jog some of you to consider that no matter what you're thinking, if it is not somewhere approaching original, that's impossible to make it useful on the basis that the only useful thing you could think has to have a certain kind of passion to it. Right? So it seems as though I wrapped it all up that if you're not thinking in some manner originally, on an original basis, if you're not being creative some way, then you cannot have passion to it. Which is all well and what? Good. Good. Except for this, Horatio. How do you explain the fact that ordinary people seem quite passionate? How do you explain the fact that people get in fistfights over the opening of an art show? Or the debut of a symphony? Of course, I always thought Stravinsky or somebody, he just hired his own clique to do it. But anyway, well, how do you explain the enthusiasm of people out at football games, people in churches, people out in fashion shows? You know, the Hubert Blass's new, the fall show, and people are just swooning. How do you explain the ordinary passions in life if there is no passion in plagiarism? The passion, I can make 2 or 3 strung out kind of mathematically definitions. That fads are the attempt at a kind of tribal passion. And it's easy enough for people to attack fads, to attack hackneyed, cliched, up-to-date politically correct terminology, all the way from that to the hula hoop, to green hair, to whatever. It is easy for the middle class, those who are old and fat and lazy, to attack fads. And to point out that that which is ephemeral has no aesthetic value. That which is passing has no ultimate artistic merit. But there is a purpose behind all manner of fads, all the way from verbal to fashionable to clothing. It is a kind of attempt in a tribal setting, collective setting, for there to be a communique of a kind of passion. And it's on the basis that beyond, without any verbalization, any tribe, any herd, any group, any nation, any bunch of people holding together all the way from wolves to humans, apparently in some homogeneous collection of people, they understand that there is a communique going on, a language, or they would not be together. And I say they understand, of course, was if they understand it, they don't know they understand it. It is, fur of a feather flocks together. They are there on the basis that they need to be together physically to survive. Humans need to be together in certain sizes and types of groups to survive post-survival, to thrive, to strive and thrive after they at first survive. So fads, and in that I will include, what will we include? My partner and I started to say we will also include religion, academia, family life, romance. And he started to say, how about everything? That'll come in a second. Everything. I thought that up. Is everything in civilization that survives for any length of time has a kind of faddish, fashionable passion behind it. So anyone who condemns it, which that's part of the fashionable tribal communique, is to have a critic. How people are allegorically playing the no, go, hark, listen to that. Skirts are going to be shorter this year. Listen. The romantic period may be returning under a new guise. In all of it, if it survives, there is a kind of attempted tribal communication past the survival level. We're into civilization, that which literally is not required for the creature Homo sapien to live. But that which is so easy to criticize, and as I was going to point out, there's always part of the faddish flow of things is to have some people, critics, involved to go, that is just absolute falderoy. That is not art, that is not religion, that is not fashion. I'm just here to criticize. If you say that's not fashion, they say we didn't call it fashion. They say, well, that's not art, and they say we didn't call it art. And they say, well, I don't give a damn, whatever you're calling it, that ain't it. See? That's the purpose of critics. Is that passion sufficient? Then you got to ask, what is a man trying to do? And then you have to answer, men have no idea what they're trying to do. Thank you and good night. But yes, people who attempt to do this, they know what they're doing. I repeat, people do not know what they're doing, and good night for the last time. To make sure that I didn't overdo it with the humor. In all religion, even, in all religion, in all fashion, in all politics, I'm talking about what is alive presently, not history, not archaeology, but what is alive. Forget whether you agree with it or whether it's going anywhere. If it is alive, it has a form of passion behind it. You have to see that. It does. Now, it's not what I was calling passion that we're about to get to, but it has a kind of passion. We could call it faux passion. We could call it nervous energy. You could call it being itchy and jumpy. What a great team. Well, after the fall of the Roman Empire, and Romulus were discredited, and, itchy and jumpy took over. There is a form of passion, and it, in one sense that we're getting to, in a sense it is faux passion, and of course I'm about to dance away from that and give you other variations. It's not faux passion on the basis that ordinary people can replace it with something else, because if it wasn't for that faux passion, they would have what passion? No passion. So it is, in a sense, really non-informative, non-instructive to call it faux passion, but compared to what we're trying to get to, it is faux passion. It is faux passion on this basis. It can be taken away by circumstances. It can be taken away just by an accident. It can be taken away for reasons that the people involved cannot begin to comprehend. That is, it's rain. It's a change in humidity. But it is there. You would not, if you were an ordinary person, you would not stay around a political rally of whatever nature, liberal or conservative, unless there was a kind of passion that you felt. Whether you agreed with it or not. You might be there as a critic. You might be there to denounce royalist sentiments, right-wing political tendencies. But if you didn't feel there was some passion, you would have no passion to resist it. No music would be popular, no matter what it is, whether it's considered to be Western dead men, serious music, or urban rap music. If there was no passion to it, no one would like it, including those who don't like it. If there was no passion to it and you didn't like it, you wouldn't any longer not like it. Whatever is going on, and religion, that covers, fill in the rest. If you can find any exception to that, write down a piece of paper and use it when you go to the bathroom because you missed it. If it has nothing directly to do with physical survival, then it does have a kind of passion, but it is passion that's under no control of the participants. That's why I was calling it faux passion. The passion is as ephemeral, as uncontrollable as appears to be the activities which it seems to be supporting and driving. So there's that kind of passion. Does that passion lead a man any further? Can it offer anything additionally? And to make a long story short, no. To make a short story long, no, probably not. No, I don't think so. Chances are not. The original was no. The kind of passion that drives ordinary activities, that keeps civilization itself together. When I said you could call it nervous energy, was not a flip figure of speech, on the basis that if a man knows anything about his mind, and I ask for a short description for the ordinary activities of one's mind, one's brain, what better description could you have than jumpy, itchy, kind of a form of nervous energy. Now, if you think that that does not equal history's greatest mystical and historical descriptions of human consciousness, thinking, then I don't know what's wrong with you. So that kind of passion is tied to what many people would be mystics, would be adventurous entrepreneurs into the unknown. Such as the Zen school saying that the attempt of a good, worthwhile man is to calm the unprofitable disturbances to the mind. What are they saying? They're saying that the mind is unduly, unprofitably itchy and jumpy. That is a form of passion. That is the form of non-survival passion. It is the very thing that mystics of all stripes believe in their words, in their mouths, that they are attempting to overcome, which would be if you could do it directly. Not that that's all that is possible under those conditions as they describe them. But if that were directly possible, what would you have done besides stick a knife into your mind? And the answer, to make a short answer long, is nothing, 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 probably nothing, I don't think, nothing, nothing, probably nothing. The original answer being nothing. If all of this kind of activity has to do with, under whatever term it was presented, But if it actually has always had to do with the continuing expansion of man's nervous system, of man's consciousness, if you want to put it in non-mystical ways now, or at least non-mystical in the sense that you have been rained on with that term before, but it's the continuing expansion of the human nervous system in only one direction, in only one way, not through muscles, not through bones, through nerves, through the little bitty gray Belgium's cells. If that be true, and if it has nothing to do with getting stronger, has nothing to do directly with any physical evolvement, any physical development. It doesn't have anything to do with changing your diet, pro or con. It doesn't have anything to do with gaining, losing weight, gaining, losing muscle, that it's beyond all that. Then we would still be fairly within our rights, just as a shorthand, to say, well, it does have to do with, if it's to do with the intellect, then it has to do with its information that I am seeking. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding. Something non-physical. In other words, it is not a still foolish dream of a physical ambrosia. I am still not seeking the physical grail. I'm not seeking a physical sword that stabbed Jesus, or the shoes that Buddha wore. That I am not seeking something physical, and so it would be within the realm of reason to refer to it as something intellectual, something non-physical, in the realm of knowledge, information, something. That's the kind of food this is looking for. That's where everyone's trying to scratch. That is the basis. If they're not trying to scratch, it's the basis of men feeling like, God, there's something in me and it's just got to come out. I swore I wasn't going to bring little E.T. back because I was afraid he was just going to point out the obvious. If that's what it is, then let me ask you this. We're still talking about passion. Then let me ask you this. If someone knew something in the past or even today, why could they not come out to you or someone else that said they were interested and convey the information almost non-personally, almost non-human? Why would it not be done, for instance, let's just as a joke say that, let's say I'm playing the part of such a person. They would come out. Why would they not do this? In fact, not only why could they not do it, but why would it not be the way to do it, at least? Now, let's make it easy. Why couldn't they do it? We'll start off the easy way. That we just, I would sit. I'm playing the part of this guy. Probably wear maybe a black suit and a cheap white shirt and a cheap black tie. Just look as common as I could in brown shoes and white socks. Put on a wedding ring and have photographs in my pocket of somebody's wife and kiddies, so that in a deadpan, non-passionate, and surely no physical gestures, just sit here and convey the information. And probably, not only, again, that it could be done, but perhaps even consciously, willfully, deliver it in a monotone, deadpan, just straight ahead. That is, let the information, if it's that important, if that's what this is about, then let it speak for itself. Let it stand on its own. Why do we need even those kind of dramatic, theatrical changes in voice and pitch and dynamics? Why would not just the information itself be sufficient? Which, a little sidestep right quick, then why would not written information not only be sufficient, but perhaps be the living example of what you're talking about? Why would it not work? What is, remember this, well, we're still not poking fun at it, but the whole idea that there is secret knowledge, a secret word, a secret trick, a secret book. I guess by now I could get almost all of you to say, all right, I want everybody that understands anything to get up with me right now and let's scoff at that and go, ha, and get it out of the way. and let's assume all you get them go ha and scoff, at least half of you sit back down thinking, I still wonder if there's not. Well, stop it. All right. What if there was? And what if you read it and it didn't mean anything? Back on the track. Why could you not present it in that way? Why could not the information be presented on its own, speak for itself, no passion, no theatrics, but you understand, just no passion, period. Why could I not, playing the part of this guy, sit and say, tonight we will talk about the passion that's necessary behind a man's thinking if he is in some way going to enlarge in a non-linear manner what is ordinarily referred to as thinking. That is not simply a physiological manifestation of the brain and the neurotransmitters, but it has to do with something beyond any textbook, beyond any current observations of the human intellect from a physical view or from a more psychological view. Uh-oh, I just did eyebrows. At any rate, you understand. Why would it not work? If the human was too inclined to get all carried away and suddenly do eyebrows or maybe one little gesture or something, why could we not refer back to some of the older times in India and Greece where you had like a brass front man, a dummy set up there. There was supposed to be a guide, except everybody knew it was just a thing, and somebody would get behind it off stage and do the talking through this thing with no eyes, just cutouts, straight slit for a mouth, no expression, and you got behind it and you did the talking. Why could we not revert back to that? I certainly hope I didn't overdo it and make you miss the point. Is it time to say again that all of this is not necessarily funny? Why would it not work? What would be missing? Now back to this, or on to this. Why can't you do it to yourself? I'm assuming that everyone who laughed, and of course those of you who did not laugh, understand that as hard as this is to get off the ground, sometimes even to get out, out on the tarmac with you people. Well, most of you like sticky asphalt half the time. But as hard as that is, then if it was done with no passion, that if someone did sit there, stand there, don't even bother to open up the hangar doors. It'd go nowhere. What's lacking? What would be lacking in such a condition, to put it quite easily, some kind of passion. But then you would have to differentiate, if there is any cause to differentiate, between this sort of activity and a football game, or a bear meeting at a Southern Baptist tent revival, or a kind of a stamp collector's convention among kind of demonstrative nudists or something. Assuming there is a difference, what would be, you would say, well, you've got to have some sort of passion to this, or I couldn't stand to listen to any of it. I could not stand to hear someone just If that be true, then what is the difference in the passion, though, between that and anything else in life? Any sports events, any religion, anything. What's the difference? You don't think about it? The answer is, you don't know. But then you've got to think, well, there's got to be a difference. Okay. Then you got to say, but then there's got to be a distinct difference in the kind of passion. Okay, what is it? I'll save you time, you don't know. If it wouldn't work for someone to stand up here and try and convey something to you, then let me ask you this. Most of you live with you. Most of you, you've got you. Yeah, you might have somebody else, but most of you are, kind of inside and hanging around, at least the peripheral here of you, hanging out with you, being with you, talking a lot to you, listening a lot to you, musing a lot about you, reflecting a lot on you, pondering on you, wondering on you, thinking on you, feeling on you, looking at you, then why would it not be possible that you could convey anything to yourself directly without passion. Would you like an example? Yes, get insulting. If a man decided, I want to quit smoking, I want to quit drinking, I want to quit smoking, why would he not say, quit? How often does that work? You mean besides another time? Right, okay. What would it take for a man to do that which he could have said directly? Stop it. There has to be some passion. Well, such things as, first thing in the morning you cough and up comes a clot of blood the size of a baby's fist. This is inclined with many reasonable men and women to bring about, shall we call it, a certain kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Passion? My God! Then, and this kind of, here we go with some sarcastic, pseudo-sarcastic theatrics, then pulling forth all of the many strings, pulling out the stops for your organ players, trying to pull in organ players and puppeteers. A man pulls in all of his wisdom and bethinks to himself, perhaps it's time I cut back on smoking. And let's say that he does. It seemed to be some passion. Now, obviously, I picked out an easy example, or an easy one to describe. Why would a man, I can say how, but I could also ask you guys why. How could you stop something if there was no passion? And that's just one direction to say stop something. But that's what most people start off believing, that this kind of activity, or going to church, or going to a political rally, is they feel like this is for some remedial action. I am not the person I should be in some manner, and perhaps this will help me. I'm too right-wing, I smoke too much, I'm too nationalistic, I'm overweight. I'm too vain, I'm too humble. If that had any validity, and if a person had any, even semi-just deserts a right to call himself a human, an alive thinking human, and for whatever reason, they decide, I'll leave it to them, they go, I will lose weight, I will not be so mad, I will quit being arrested all the time, I will do something that will be for my good. It's his good, let him decide, we don't care. So he says it. Can he do it? You mean besides another time? Can he do it sans any passion? You mean less than any other time? Why are people doing anything to apparently improve themselves? See, I can ask as many dumb questions as anybody. Well, I guess to improve themselves. Would anybody try to improve themselves for no reason? Is that a trick question? If a person decided that there was some reason to change, to improve themselves and try to change, why could they not? Let's say they look in the mirror and play their own talking head. Their head in the mirror and they go, quit getting mad. Stop smoking. It's ridiculous. Am I correct? It's easy. Within 30 seconds you can go from being stupid to being correct. Asking stupid questions to asking correct questions. Does anybody get the point? You have never tried to change anything, if that had any importance. Let's just on the basis that everyone has felt and people still feel. That's part of having the intellect fired up, is that's one of the first jobs for the intellect, is to go, it doesn't do it this way, but everybody seems to understand this and get a chuckle out of it. That one of the first things the intellect does is go, ooh, ooh, and you immediately cringe. Like, God, now I've been caught. Because everybody's all right until the intellect takes over, in case you never noticed. You don't have to look at an anthropological history of man. All you got to do is see a kid shitting in his pants, spitting on everybody, grabbing anything he wants, and then the intellect gets going. Parents take credit for it. I know. They go, well, we began to instill in the boy good Presbyterian values. The intellect took over. And suddenly, Before then, what happened? How come suddenly now, he's boy humanitarian? How come now he's certainly, Miss Manners, Albert Schweitzer? And all that happened, his intellect got going. And the parents go, do not shit in the floor and then throw it on your sister. Uh-oh. It wasn't the parents that did that. It wasn't conscience. It was the intellect. Something strong enough that made a person say, change that. Don't do that. Why can they not? If it has any validity, and if the person's actually a sane human being, how come they cannot do what I said, and you obviously had to agree, why you would not sit there and listen to someone, even if you thought they knew something that you wanted to know, if they went, stop it, or do it. Or I go through what I started to do, hour after hour, just deadpan, It's the same thing. If a person did have any degree, any right to call themselves an intellectual, a conscious human being, and if they decided there's something I should do or not do, why would they not play that kind of dull, deadpan, unemotional, straight ahead, point blank, in your face, to themselves, conveyor of useful information? Stop smoking. Not the ordinary level, and you know it. That's what I didn't want you to overlook. And not only do you know that, it would seem to be so, from an ordinary level, so self-evident as to be somewhere past. Dumb and stupid. I mean, we're on the far side of Snellville, where nobody's anybody. Not only do you know it's ridiculous, the ordinary mind would say it's beyond ridiculous, because if you didn't have some feel for what you're doing, in other words, if you did not feel, if you didn't have some passion to go, I got to quit drinking. If not for myself, for my poor family. I mean, look at them. One of them's always got a broken bone from my weekend. Our house is, it's trashed, and I don't remember what I do, so I mean, why would I quit unless there's some passion behind it? Hey, they got us. Well, they ain't got us. They got you. Well, they ain't got you. You got you. Oh, well, you ain't got you. Life got you. The mind is its own passion. It is not a physical passion. That is why people cannot describe it. That's why psychology continues to sink forever to some people. It floats at the civilized level. But for some people, all the way from the Greek metaphorical playwrights, all the way right up until modern day theories of psychology and personality and human development, none of them float. I mean, it's always a hole, and they know it. Everybody knows this. No, we're not here to discuss it. And of course, religion was born with gaping holes in it. That's how you get in, is you step in. And all that's non-survival. All of that are areas that are necessary for a man to be human and to be willfully mobile in today's world. But it's not absolutely necessary. At the absolutely necessary level would be down the red circuits of man, just at the physical level. And there, again, if you're sane, you don't even have to think about passion. There's nothing to think about. You're hungry, you eat. Sleepy, you go to sleep, etc. So you've got your own passion there, if you're sane. And if you had to, you would fight for food. You would kill for food if you had to. And not give it a second thought, if it actually came to it. Once the mind starts, we'll assume the mind has started in all of you. It has its own passion, but it is a different passion. And thus it's been that all of the writing, all of the attempts at metaphorical poetry, religious mysticism, fables, myths, allegories, the arts, human relationships, everything that is part of the intellectual world of man is, dare I say it? You know I will. Well, if any of you have pictures of your family, stop up your ears. Inexplicable. Surprising how many people put their fingers in their ears so fast I couldn't even see it. It's just invisible. and still manages not to hear it. The world of man cannot be explained. On a good day, every pope, rabbi, psychologist, mother, father, bricklayer will admit, you're right. But why can't it be explained? Men can explain to their own satisfaction within their given realm. Is one reason they split them up into specific categories. But a zoologist, especially one specializing in one animal, they can explain the life of the Serengeti fine-tailed zebra. They can explain the life, they can explain the life cycle, they can explain the food chain tied above, sideways, and below this animal. They can explain it. Somebody who specializes in the Virginia red truncated woodpecker, they can describe, and to their satisfaction. Well, at least enough that they get their degree. They can describe the life. They can describe where that woodpecker fits in the food chain, how it helps everybody, and etc. You ask anybody, now we're talking about the life of man up here now, not the physical existence. You ask anybody, can you describe life? And anyone who even approaches the semblance of candor will say, no, not me. Now don't listen to E.T. Does anybody find that interesting? That you weren't the first one to think of this. That we've had 7,000 or 8,000 years of people pondering that. And those who really ponder it, and those who have pondered even the history of previous ponderers, would, in another moment of temporary insanity, lucidity, admit, no, we're no closer to explaining life. Does anyone find that of the slightest unusual interest? Not sequential interest, not pro or con, not partisan interest, but in the same way that everyone says, if they're not busy scratching and bitching, say, there's something in me that, God, it's just got to come out. If I was just free, if I was free politically, economically, if I was free psychologically, if I could just say what it is I want to say. Those who have studied the inability to say what it is you want to say, in another inexplicable moment of clarity, and you ask, are we any closer to men doing that? They'd go, no. Does anyone find that of any interest? Don't listen to him now. I told him not to talk. To somebody point out the obvious. No, oh no. Hey, that is cheating. They say that the human existence in all forms, you do not have to be a radical, insane critic of society from any aspect to simply say the life of man, the political, the economic, the social, the artistic, all of this, the sports life. Just look at civilization, and from one view, even if you could do it non-critically, if you could try and take some cold-blooded view and you go, compared to watching animals, to watching a little pond, watching beavers and otters and a woodpecker come by, and watching the trees and the change of season, you can look at that one area. You can segment and turn it into one category, isolate one piece of local reality, and it makes sense. You can explain what the beaver's doing there. You can explain how the otter ties in. You can explain sometimes the bear comes by twice a year to this. You can explain it. And you turn right around and look. Even the guy describing this, the zoologist, say, I turn around and I look at the world of academia. I look at the political intrigues going on back at my alma mater, me trying now to get my doctor's degree. And I see what's going on. And I'm just trying to do my job. I'm just doing something I thought would interest me. And I look at this and I go, what in the hell is going on? What's wrong with these people? Now, we're back to human life now. It is simply inexplicable. Now, don't listen to him if he said, well, does anybody find it interesting that it's not inexplicable just suddenly? I give you my word again. As soon as Mickey and Minnie walked out of the garden, as soon as they got out of the garden, that is, the brain flamed up, they went, what in the hell is going on? See, until then it was all right. But then it's like, what is this? Because, let's say that Mickey said that. If Minnie was approaching again my classification of it, her representing an actual sane, intelligent person. And as soon as the voice of the heavens said, "Get out of here," in other words, the intellect fired up. God said, "Quit shitting on the floor and throwing it on your sister." Same thing. So they're out of the garden. And Mickey says, suddenly, for the first time, let's assume they've been in existence for many, many years. They're outside the garden. This is going. And Mickey says, suddenly, after all this time together, they've been eating and doing all kinds of stuff. They've been together. And suddenly, nobody ever said anything. Suddenly, they're outside the garden. And within minutes, seconds, Mickey goes, "What in the hell is going on here?" In other words, life's becoming inexplicable. If there was such a thing as an ordinary, sane, intelligent person, many would have said this on their own back then, or vice versa. She would have gone, just what I'm about to do, what I've just described, she would have gone, "We've been out of there for, according to my watch, less than a minute. How the hell can you ask what the hell's going on? We just got here." But I assure you with all of the vigor and truthfulness in my index finger, that it happened within seconds when they got out. And I also assure you, and now you don't have to take my finger for it, look at yourself. Not only did it start then, it's going on now. As everyone says, what's going on? But then there should be a question, well, why are you so passionately concerned with the question? And if you'd like me to save time again, the answer is you don't know. But it cannot be stopped. If it could be stopped, you would be in a psychological, you'd be a social anomaly. You cannot stop it. It's obvious that people seem involved with the question about what's going on here to varying degrees. Some people seem to spend a large part of their life and energy in it, and some seem to spend almost nothing. But if they're anything other than a laying on their back hermit, then they're spending some degree involved with it. That is, if they're civilized at all. If there's anything in life that interests them beyond the survival level, which is self-evident, or they wouldn't be civilized. If there's anything beyond eating and screwing and sleeping and staying warm that they are interested in, even if you're just watching TV, watching a ball game, if there's something, then they are involved with, what's the meaning of this? If the intellect is alive, it is that itchy and that jumpy. That is its passion. But notice, no one ever comes around to asking themselves, well, wait a minute. How come I won't know what is the nature of life or what's going on here, and I am so passionate about it? And yet if I take away the passion, the apparent passion I have in it, I wouldn't even ask the damn question. And of course, always the side dish, for those of you that find the main course at times a bit overwhelming, is always a question about, well, how come there's been this little plate here of apparent hors d'oeuvres and no one's been able to finish off this mother for 8,000 years? And everybody still looks at it and goes, what could be the meaning of this? And from generation to generation, no one goes, the people before me that sat here asked that. And they left word that the people before them said that. Hey, are we getting somewhere or not? How long can life pull the wool over our eyes? Can you count 8,000 years? How about, can you spell it? The very passions, and ordinary people would call it examples of stupidity, ignorance, prejudice, but the very passions that run the civilized world. People's enthusiasm for baseball, for all forms of sports, for boxing, for movies, for entertainment of all sorts, for religion, for social events, for fashion. Anything in the civilized world that men have an interest in, they have a passion for. If that's not the passion, or if pursuing those passions will not satisfy what people actually want, and let's now assume it's people who specifically believe that they want something that's not readily available, such as this kind of stuff, then what sort of passion is it that would drive it? if it's not the ordinary kind. See, the first problem and the first solution is that people do not recognize the fact that the passions that drive ordinary life have nothing to do with this. May I say contraire? Try and stop me. They simply cannot. It's not even arguable. They would not even ever put those 2 and 2 together and come up with 3 like they should. All right, 5. It all based upon the need for stability, a form of a sense of order, a kind of sequential, linear, in a sense, expansion of the human nervous system and man himself. Even those who believe, even those who surmise, theorize that there could be some sort of transcendental possibility in man, in his mental condition, they can call it spiritual, they can call it anything. In some way, to meet the criteria I just described as being sequential, being part of an orderly fashion, they have to. Why else would somebody go and put up with the stuff they do, for instance, in any religious institution you can find on this planet? Doesn't matter which one. If you stepped into it now, it's just easier to see if it's a foreign one, and you walked in and saw what the people are doing. And you double check to make sure that it was a religious institution and not an insane asylum. I'm talking about one you've never heard of or seen. And there they are, and you find it's the mayor of the village. The creme de la creme of their society are here doing things, and you go, is this the original, was this the template for the great state of Bedlam? And you find, no, these are people pursuing a kind of metaphysical muse. They're trying to improve themselves. And they seem so passionate about it. You, at least we missed the point now, as far removed as that might seem to you, and let's assume that you were trying to be somewhat objective. And you looked at it and you thought, well, at least, and again, if you were trying to be a broad-minded man of the world, you would be inclined to say, finally, words along this line like, well, I'm not sure I understand it, and I'm not sure that would be the proper path for me, based upon our differences in culture and etc. But surely they are, are you ready? They're on the proper path. And why is that? Well, because as foreign as it is to me, it makes some sense. I could see how you'd get from, so-and-so to here. And by then, any possibility you've got has gone. Oh. Why? Because it makes sense. It is the passion. Man, that kind of passion is the ability to play heave-ho and then find nourishment afterwards. The passion that drives everything else. Let me try it even more simply. I know I've said this, but I was trying to set you up to push in a slightly different way. The same passions that are out right now driving people in the playoff games and baseball, whatever, are the same passions that drive men into monasteries. The same passions that drive people into churches and temples that go faithfully, go 2 or 3 times a day, that give a large part of their income and their time and energy, etc. It is the same passion. The passion that makes people want to be fashionable, that makes people want to be successful beyond any level of simply paying for their own survival. That passion is the same passion. And we're not playing relative metaphorical games. It is the same bloody passion that drives ordinary people to believe that they're on a mystical quest. Thus it be that sort of passion, you can cut it, you can paint it up, you can wrap it up, you can turn it inside out, you can teach it a new language, or you can find a version of it that speaks a different language than yours, and it's the same thing. That passion will not drive, will not furnish the fuel, will not furnish the path to make a person super conscious. to make a person conscious in a different way, to make a person find what it is that itches. To be passionate about thinking, but in a way that's not passionate about anything you ever thought. In the same way that I can, with some useful validity, allegorically say that the passion that drives ordinary thinking, passion that drives the ordinary civilized life of man, is not necessary vis-a-vis the kind of animal passion that drives our basic need to survive. All of you can understand that allegorically. The drives, the animal drives of hunger, self-preservation, and keeping the race going, etc., that drives all of us from this line of the cerebral cortex down the nonverbal physical side, animal side. Compared to that, the passions that make people dress up, write symphonies, write great books, paint great paintings, lead political parties, compared to that, the civilized passion is not actually necessary. Everybody can see that. All right. The passion that there is no name for, the passion that would be at the kind of doorway, at the kind of expressway, at the kind of paving, at the kind of signpost that leads to what people like you are trying to do, all of this, that kind of passion has the same comparable validity, value, describability, necessity as ordinary civilized passion does to animal passion, which is none. This other kind of passion has now. Now I've upped the stakes, remember, I'm not comparing this new passion to animal passion. No, we'll make it harder. I'm comparing this passion to the ordinary civilized passion, which already is not necessary. You got that? This, compared to that, is really not necessary. Thus it is that people cannot describe paintings. People cannot satisfactorily to themselves, even the most spiritual of all people at any time, cannot adequately describe God, Allah, true artist, whoever is the most famous painter, composer, etc. at any particular time. They cannot describe the muse art. People, no matter the world's leading social, psychological commentator, cannot at any particular time describe the nature of politics, of social movements. Cannot. But they do it in a way that is passionate. They passionately cannot describe it. As unnecessary as that is, part of what protects the overall balance of life and keeps man from, and this is not my view, I'm just putting in words, and it doesn't really mean a whole lot of shit, except there is no other description, and you got to have somewhere to start. It's like to keep us in balance, which I'm always glad I never bring up stuff like this to right the tail end where even I'm not tempted to go into it. That's not true. We're not going to get out of balance. We're not outlaws. Well, we're not serious outlaws. We're not a threat to life. We're not a threat to the order of civility and progress. We ain't shit. Oh, don't get the blues. All right, we're as shitty as anybody else, okay? Well, but while everyone else, and you at the ordinary level, would be passionate in your inability to describe the nature of life, to describe what civilized existence is, to describe what it is you think you're after, then consider, if you go beyond that, I mean, you're already scratching, you're clawing to come up with a passion, to get and go to work, or to do your drywall work, or to paint your painting, or to write your song and present it. And people go, well, you go, come on now. Hey, does that put you in the mind of Schubert? Huh? I mean, Chagall? I mean, just turn your head this way. Or I know that perhaps Plato and some of the other, but have you ever heard it presented the way I did it? You do it on the basis that you even know without it, what little phony baloney success or reason I get up and make it through the day, I wouldn't even have that. you're already clawing, grasping to make yourself pursue what it is you're doing. If you're, in truth, quite interested in crap stuff, things like this. So if you're already at that level, where's the passion? What are you even going to call a passion? Could you even actually believe that it exists to make you do something that's even more irrelevant than that? We're not going to leave on a sad note, although I can flat a third and a fifth as well as anyone. Now I take you back to this. Ordinary people, if they want to quit smoking, quit drinking, they have to have this kind of insightful, intellectual passion to either spit up gobs of blood, or people keep thinking they're carrying around a concealed weapon when it's only their liver. They have to have that kind of passion to attempt to make any change, to attempt to do something. There has to be this apparent passion. And you were supposed to have, along the way, 30, 40 minutes ago, beyond your laughter or your nervousness, when I brought those kind of examples, and also remember, point out that were it not for that, how could an ordinary man, or why could not, the rhetorical version, why could not an ordinary man decide that drinking is bad for me, so he looks at himself, not his liver, doesn't go to a doctor, doesn't read 20 books over a period of 5 years on why it might be good to cut down on drinking. He just comes up with this miraculous conclusion, after 40 years and a liver like this and etc., that I'll quit drinking. And he says, I'll quit drinking. And everyone understands, hey, that ain't the way life works, is it? Yeah, I know. Well, you say that, but that is how life works. What you're trying to do is get beyond how life works. So now back to the question about, well, if the ordinary passion that runs ordinary life is so ephemeral, so imaginary, so hard that you've got to keep just faking it, if that's already faux passion, then the kind of passion that's even beyond that, then, how the hell could you get it? May I refer you back to my example just then? That would seem to be impossible. It seems to be functionally what would we say besides impossible? Functionally infrequent. How about that? Of someone saying to themselves, stop smoking, stop getting mad. Is that not in the realm of absolute irrelevancy? You could not see the kind of passion that could drive the mind to such a place that could move to a new level to where it's no longer itchy and scratchy, and it's no longer the seat of a form of faux passion, that you would have to do that which would apparently have no purpose, no relevance, in fact be impossible, or functionally infrequent. To say, well, this kind of thing has no necessity, not this thing in general, because we're not here to save the world, we're not even here to save the people down the street, we're just barely here to save you. And I just said that to make you feel good. You're supposed to be here for your own reason. You cannot wait for a passion, because all the energy running your passion is keeping this thing alive. All the ordinary passion you got is keeping you at that same bus station. It's keeping you. It's keeping you going, well, what'll I do next? Or how many more of these goddamn meetings you think I have to go to before I'll suddenly come to it? It is the same kind of irrelevancy. It is beyond any grasp of a wimp. That's why those of you that never did care for those terms when I bring them up, screw you. You weren't listening. Sissies, wimps, ordinary people. Where's my billfold? Wives and kiddies. You can't wait for that kind of passion. There is no purpose. You have to be able to look at yourself, and you got to be able to do it, not your mind, because your mind will begin to itch and scratch even more. Just say, do it. A fear is always good, but it's got to be a personal fear, a dread, some emotion that almost is irrelevant to you to start with. You can use it as a springboard. If I had not just been recently scraped for barnacles and cliches, I'd say, jumpstart. your own passion. By having one that your mind does not have. Is the tape gone?